Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Jo, this is Joey Sewy, and we're talking about sewing, styling and self-care every day in May for Me Made May. Today I am going to show you what I'm wearing, and I am going to do a much requested video about how I use Vinted as a person who sews. So what have I been wearing? I will be here. Today I actually got dressed with this video in mind. So I am wearing a shirt that I got on Vinted, and I am wearing a jumpsuit that I sewed, but I made it from a ready-to-wear piece of clothing that I bought on Vinted, sort of. I will explain. And I'm wearing some shoes, which I didn't get on Vinted, but I was searching for on Vinted, and then walked past my high street store, on one of my local shoe shops. So it's genuinely a local shoe shop, and they had some cobalt blue trainers outside, and I was like, I must have those cobalt blue trainers because I have been looking for cobalt blue trainers, and so they are mine. It was really weirdly hard to find some on Vinted when I was looking recently. So let me tell you briefly how I came across these items. So as I said, the shirt, and I'm going to cover the various ways that I use Vinted very shortly to kind of talk about how people who sew might find it useful in terms of adding to your wardrobe or inspiring your sewing, etc. So this shirt, I originally saw a version of this shirt in a thrift store, charity shop, and loved it. I loved the colour, I loved the shape. It had a built-in tie at the waist, tick. It was blue and white, tick. It was a particular like bright cobalt blue, tick, 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 tick. It was a graphic print, loved it. Totally wrong size, massive. And at the time, unlike when I was thrifting the other day and I shared my video with you, I was not looking for something to take apart. I just liked it exactly as it was, but it was completely the wrong size. I thought for ages, do I buy it to sew it? But I didn't have the time to do it. It felt like one of those that if I'd got it, probably would have just sat in a pile for ages. So instead, I took a picture of it to remember where it was from and what it looked like. And then I came home, and a few days later, a little while later, not long, I went on Vinted and I searched for the brand where it was from. So it was from a fast fashion brand, which if you're on Vinted, it is much more likely that you're going to find something from a high volume retailer because fast fashion. But that does work in your favour if you're trying to match something that you've seen elsewhere, because there's likely to be more of it statistically. So I searched for Florence and Fred, which was the brand of this, which is the Tesco supermarket own brand. I filtered by colour. I filtered by style. I'm going to go into this in a minute. My memory is sketchy. And basically just scrolled and scrolled and scrolled looking for it. Luckily it was quite striking, and there it was in my size. It was kind of that simple. It doesn't always work out that easily, but this shirt did, and I felt so clever and so pleased. And it just cost me a few pounds. I can't remember how much, but not a lot. And then, as I say, the jumpsuit, I made this. The fabric was from Minerva. I made it at least 2, maybe 3 years ago now, maybe 2 summers ago. And it was because I had originally got a jumpsuit from a thrift store, and I loved it, and it was in black, and I showed you it in my wardrobe audit, and I will insert a picture here just so you can see it. I really liked that jumpsuit. I did not want to take that one apart, but I did want to take one apart to essentially make a pattern from it. I know that you can measure and do what they call rubbing off a garment, but I didn't. Well, I've never done it, and the black fabric is like a plissé stretchy fabric. I didn't feel like I would get a reliable copy of the size of the pattern pieces and the nature of the pattern pieces with such a stretchy fabric on an elasticated garment. Just felt like it was always going to fail. And it felt simpler to potentially at least have a look to see if I could find an exact copy of that jumpsuit on Vinted, so I could buy that one for equal to or less than the cost of a pattern and take it to pieces and then make a pattern from it. which is exactly what I did. So it was from New Look, which is a very popular high street fast fashion brand in the UK. And so there were a lot of these jumpsuits, like loads of these jumpsuits. Some of them very close, but not the same. And that is something you have to look out for. You really, if you're looking for an exact copy, you need to have beady eyes. And maybe I'll cover that later, like how to do that. So I bought an exact copy and I took that one apart and I made the pattern for this jumpsuit from my disassembled jumpsuit, which is exactly the same as the first jumpsuit. Are you following? Good. So that's what I'm wearing today. Let's get into how you use Vinted. So this is the homepage of Vinted. Vinted is actually optimized to use as an app rather than online on a laptop or a PC, but you can use it on both. But occasionally you come up against things on a laptop or PC that don't work quite as well as on your phone or a tablet. So that is something to bear in mind, that it's actually optimized for a phone or a tablet. And the home screen will look slightly different. But so first of all, really briefly, if you already know how to use Vinted, then you might want to skip forward a few minutes. But if you don't, really briefly, how does it work? What is it? It is like eBay in the old days. Originally it was just for clothes. They are starting to get bigger. But it is largely, what used to be completely, and it is still, certainly with clothes, almost exclusively private sellers selling to private sellers. So again, like eBay in the old days. eBay has changed a little bit, so they do this, but when Vinted started, I think they were the only people doing this, where it is the person who buys who pays the postage and the selling fees. So there is a fee against each item. There's a selling item and then there's a small fee. And then you choose what postal service you want. So you choose what you're going to pay. And those prices are controlled and fixed by Vinted. As a seller, they are fair. So you're not ripped off as a seller. But what is really great for people who do want to sell is that you don't have to choose any of that. You can set parameters if you don't have a particular courier service in your area or it's really unreliable or inaccessible. You don't have to use them. But you don't have to think about how to price it. All taken out of your hands. It works very smoothly. It's really good. And I like this way round of doing it. And as a buyer, I don't find it super inconvenient. In fact, it's much more consistent. So as someone who buys on Vinted, I know that I am getting kind of controlled postal prices, but I also know they're not ripping off the seller. And I don't mind that I pay the selling fee because it isn't usually more than a few pence. It is related to how much you are buying the item for, but even on very expensive items, it's not a lot. It doesn't go up exponentially. So Vinted is essentially a second-hand clothes selling site that is more and more branching out into other things, but we're looking at clothes. What you need to think about is how can you search on Vinted? So let's have a look at women. So here's the drop-down menu: clothes, shoes, bags, accessories, beauty, clothing, categories. So it's a little bit like searching for patterns, isn't it? Searching for items. So I thought, why don't we see if we can search for another shirt like this? So I would have to be in tops and t-shirts. Let's go tops and t-shirts. And then we get, this is slightly different presented on an app, but it's the same thing. What type of top or t-shirt do you want? Here. So let's say shirts. Then you can restrict by size. You can select more than one. So I'm going to go 10 and 12 and 8 because it's quite oversized. Brand, it is Florence and Fred here. So you can either scroll, there are a lot, and it doesn't show you all the options here. So there'll be some that if you start typing like and other, there you go, and other stories, which was not on the original list, for example. And as you can see, I've put in and, it knows about the ampersand. It's luckily quite clever like that. So I want Florence and Fred. Condition, as I don't usually look by that, but you can. Colour, I'm going to go white and blue and see what happens. I don't know if I will put a pattern yet. You can. I'm not sure what I would describe this pattern as. So I'm not going to put a pattern. Price, I'm not going to put. Material, What you have to bear in mind with all these search things is that it is other humans who have described this. Some of them are going to be really good at describing clothes, like we sewists are. Some of them are not. But I'm going to try putting viscose if it's on the list. It is, just to narrow things down. And sort by, you can put price high to low, newest first. Oh my goodness, I honestly did not fix this, but there it is. There's exactly the one that I am wearing. New with tags, £3, £3.85, including, they call it a buyer guarantee. It's really the seller's fee. And it's also what you pay in order to be able to claim if things go missing, or if the seller flakes out, or if they try and scam you. Vinted take care of all of that, so it's covered in the same fee. So if I click on that, you get several pictures, so I can have a look at what it looks like, and I am 100% sure it's the same one. Okay, so that was lucky, but that's how you would do it. You just go back and forth with going through the filters, and there are a lot of them, and thinking about what are you looking for. So I was looking here for a specific garment, so I was guided by that, but you might be looking for a specific type of garment, so you'd still go the size that you want. You might be not bothered about the colour, you might be bothered by the colour. It's a bit, you have to go trial and error with how you filter. Sometimes if you filter really narrowly, you will cut out everything. But if you don't filter enough, you will get the universe. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of garments on Vinted at any one time. So you do need to filter by something. So that is basically how you can search, and you can do that with infinite variety. So one more thing about how to use Vinted. There are 3 features that I think you should pay attention to. The first one is that you can favorite items. Here I am favoriting everything that's there. I wouldn't normally do that. When I favorite things, they appear up in my account up here. Oh, sorry, they appear here. It's different on the computer. So that heart shape is in the app in a different place, but here are all your favorites. So those are the things I just favorited, and now they're in your favorite list. You only get one favorite list, so you can't do like one for dresses, etc. These are things that I have favorited in the past. So I use favorites when I'm searching for something. So I've set what my parameter is, this shirt for example. I found one, I might want to see if I can find it cheaper, or I might think that one's a size 10. Actually, ideally, I want a slightly different size. I would take a 10 if that's the only one that's there, but I would scroll down and see if there are any more, and I'd favourite several. The other thing you have to bear in mind is that sometimes people have listed things and they've just wandered off into the ether and they'll never reply to messages, so you won't really be able to buy it. It happens fairly rarely, but it does happen. So if you've got the opportunity to just scroll down a bit and see if there's more than one. Let's see if we're lucky enough to find more than one super quickly. This will show you that I did not fake it the first time. No, here's another page. Getting distracted, don't get distracted. So if you're looking, I'm looking for a really clear pattern so I can scroll quite quickly. No, I don't see that. Okay. Word to the wise, don't get distracted. You'll be there forever. So you favourite things, and then they go in your favourite list. And then once you're in your favorited list, there are 2 things about how you can buy that I wanted to highlight. First is, so if I've seen this and I want to buy it, I could just click buy it now. If I feel like £3, or actually £3.85 up here is what I will pay. If that's what I really want to pay, I just buy it now. The postage I will select later. It says from £2.29. So my final cost is going to be about £6.20. Or I can make an offer, or I can ask the seller. Now what I always do first is at least click on the ask the seller button, because when you do, it will load this. And this is the box that you want. The tells you their username, reviews, fine, where they are, lovely. Last seen. So last seen 5 hours ago, that tells me this person is on Vinted quite often. They're checking their account. If I buy something from them, they're probably going to respond. Sometimes things have been listed for quite a long time. I will show you where you see this on here. So uploaded 9 months ago. Initially, I'd be like, oh, well, that might mean that the person is not interested, not there anymore. They listed a load of things 9 months ago and they're not there anymore. So I would usually probably ask the seller, is it still available? And that is me testing, are you actually still alive? When they respond and say yes, I might buy it now, or I might make an offer. So you can make an offer of anything. I think they have a minimum. So if I try and offer £2, it will send that offer to that seller. I'm not committed, which is why I was happy to just click that. It sent that offer and they can say yes or no at that point. And you are not committed. It will come back with a buy button if they've said yes. And if they say no, they'll either not respond, which is annoying because they're ghosting you, or you can buy it then for your lower price. So I think it's always worth making an offer. Maybe that's cheeky of me, but I think it's always worth making an offer. Unless it's something you really want or something that was listed really recently and it might go quickly. It's up to you. But offers, it's useful to know about offers, and I would suggest that you should use them. The other thing that you can do is, if we just go back a little bit. So let's just say we want this item. Go for a different one. That's a terrible picture. What you can do is scroll down, and you scroll down on your phone as well. Members items, they have 81 things for sale. If I like anything else that they've got, and this is a little bit of a tricksy one because maybe you only wanted to buy something and maybe you're about to buy more than one. If I like any of these things that they've got, like a zigzag cardigan, I can add it to a bundle and I am likely to get up to 20% off. So I can go create bundle and I can say, well, this one's already in it because that's the one that started it. I'm going to add that one. I'm going to add another item, and it's telling me at the top, if I add one more item, I get 10% off. If I add 2 more items, I will get 20% off. There we go. Then we review our bundle, which now has got 20% off because I bought loads of things from the same person. It only works with the same person, which is why it's a bit fatal, because you might just end up buying stuff you don't really want or really need and just overbuying. So be careful. But I usually do, if I have decided I definitely want thing number 1, I usually have a look at what else they've got, because combined postage usually applies. And sometimes I've got some really great things. So my red and white zigzag shoes, I cannot remember what I bought them with, but I know they weren't the primary thing that I was ordering. And I looked at what else does this person have available, and I really liked the shoes, and I was like, wow. And from memory, I don't think I kept item original, but I did keep those shoes. So sometimes it works out, but buyer beware, don't buy too much. Quick recap. Filter, maybe not too narrow, but also definitely not too broad. Goldilocks filter. Use the favorites, because that's how you can be filtering and scrolling, but saving things as you go along. And then I go back to my favorites and have a look at, say, like if I was just looking for a blue pattern shirt, maybe I'd save 10. And then I go back and I go, okay, which one of these is my favorite? And of that one, I might go and make an offer on it. So then you're into bundles and offers, and I've shown you how to do that. So that's how you use it. What about how you use it for sewing? So I have just done a quick search to filter by a brand that I like, which is Under the Stories, colour that I like, which is purple, and a garment that I am interested in the style of, and I've talked quite a bit this month, which is blouses. So I have got 106 results, mainly because I've filtered it by colour. If I took the colour out, I'd have way more than that. So things that you might want to use it for, first of all, is experiments. So the reason why I have filtered by a brand is to kind of go towards a certain style. You could just scroll randomly, but as I've said, there's so many things on there that I recommend filtering by one brand, having a look at their things, and then filtering by another brand that you like, and then scrolling through their things. It just makes the whole thing more manageable. Otherwise you're trying to eat an elephant, as they say, and it's too much to try and eat an elephant all at once, isn't it? So we have lots of different blouses here, and what I might be looking for is just shapes that I would use. I would go, oh my goodness, I love the sleeves on this purple blouse, for example. I haven't seen that anywhere. Maybe I can look, then I can go and look in pattern companies or on somewhere like the Fold line. Are there any blouse patterns that have these details? Or I could say, well, actually, if I look at that blouse, I love the style. And unfortunately here there are only 2 pictures, which is a bit annoying. I love the style. And if I break that down, what I can see is there's some gathers at the front centre chest. There is a poofy sleeve and possibly some elastic there. But other than that, it's actually a fairly straight rectangle. So if I'm adventurous in altering patterns, I could get some inspiration from that and go, okay, or if I have my own sloper or pattern block, I could go, well, that's not that many pattern alterations there. There's a bit of work in the sleeves and there's some gathering up the front. And I like how that looks. And I can see the kind of drape of the fabric that I might want. Obviously, you can't get your hands on things, but you can get your eyes on things, and it might help you think outside the box, might help you think about details that you hadn't thought of before. So let's see if we can find something that's got some interesting details on to prove that point. Okay, so here's one. If you wanted to do all the shearing in the world, then this is your garment, because it's apparently got all the shearing in the world. Wow. I mean, I quite like that, but I don't know if I'd want to do all the shearing in the world. But you could. I quite like how they've broken it up. So again, you could get design inspiration from that. I like that gathered yoke. What other details might you find? Scroll. So here's one which has got 3 whole tiers of ruffles. That's a lot of ruffles, isn't it? But maybe you were thinking, you know, what about if I added 3 whole tiers of ruffles? How would that look? And the answer is, this is how it would look. Now, you can't see it on a body. This person has put it on a mannequin, which is quite helpful. You can't see it on your body and how you would style it, so you need to do a little bit of a leap of imagination. However, it has got a detail there that you may want to take inspiration from. So on the one hand, using it this way, it's a little bit like using it as a fashion magazine, except of course you sometimes get more pictures than you would in a fashion magazine. You're probably pulling from a broader pool of ideas than you would in a fashion magazine. You get to curate it, which you may like or you may not like, because obviously it's nice to have someone to present all the ideas to you, but sometimes that means you're getting their point of view. So for ideas for experiments, so either details on patterns, or the other thing where this goes is if there's a style of top that you've been thinking, for example, you know, I want to try a ruffle top. Well, do you have the time and the inclination to sew all those ruffles, or do you want to buy something to try it for a bit, which if you love it, that's great and you can keep it, and if you don't love it, you've saved your sewing time. Now, you may not want to do that with everything, but if you are trying to stretch your style self and go to different places, but you don't want to have lots of sewing disappointment along the way as you try out different shapes and things, then you could potentially get some of the ideas from Vinted to try wearing in real life at a lower cost than if you bought them new. So Under the Stories is not a cheap shop. So some of their items do retain their value, and you could resell them at the end as well. So it's different to go in, and if you can't, like me, go to the high street and just try stuff on, then this is a way that you can try things. I don't think it would be practical to kind of use it as just a trying on exercise, partly because you do need to bear in mind that you can ask to return things, but buyers do not have to take things back. If they have described something completely wrong, if they've lied, if it's damaged, then you have a buyer protection fee that will protect you. But if it's just that you don't like it, then you can ask if they'll take it back, but they don't have to. So you are taking a risk, and you need to bear that in mind. A bit more specifically, what I have used Vinted for, as I mentioned with my jumpsuit, is I have got ready to wear garments that I want to make a copy of. I don't feel skilled to draft that pattern on my own, or like with the jumpsuit, the fabric wasn't great to copy it without taking it apart. I don't want to take it apart because I like the original garment. So I've gone searching for a copy. That's not going to work every time, but it is something you can do, particularly if the garment that you really like is a fast fashion one. And it doesn't have to be really recent, you know, probably things that were for sale within the last 1 or 2 years, at my guess, would be most prevalent on Vinted. But people sell things they've had for decades. It's going to be harder to find your exact copy, but it might be out there, and it would be worth a treasure hunt, I believe. Talking about styling rather than sewing, so you've made some beautiful me-mades and you want to wear them, but you want to build an outfit, and maybe you haven't got the accessories or the shoes that you can imagine would look amazing with those items. I find Vinted really great for shoes. I know some people are a bit squeamish about buying secondhand shoes. That's okay if you are. You're not going to be buying them off Vinted. But if you don't mind, then I find Vinted probably the best place I know to look for shoes, regardless of new or secondhand, because there's just so much and you can filter so well. So you would look for shoes. Trainers is what I'm often looking for. Obviously you will filter by size. Let's just see what's around in my size. Don't usually filter by brand, but it depends if I'm looking for something specific. If I look for blue, I'm not that bothered about material. Now, if you look for a colour like blue, you are going to get loads of different blues. So one thing you can do, top tip, is you can use the search bar up here to put in a keyword. So let's try cobalt. Not everyone is going to describe cobalt as the same thing, but if you have many hundreds of things and you want to narrow it down, then use the keyword box. They're rather nice. They're very blue. And we are digressing. So this is how you can start to look for shoes. And because for me, colourful shoes is a key part of my style, I have done a lot of this where I'm like, I don't have a pair of pink trainers. I need a pair of pink trainers because I want to wear them with my red trousers. For example, I might think to myself. So I will go ahead and look for pink trainers. Searching for belts is not quite as easy, but I have bought belts off Vinted as well. How to lower the risk when you are searching on Vinted. Here are my top tips for how to lower the risk. Number 1, only buy brands that you know the sizing of. So you maybe already have them in your wardrobe and you know what size fits you, because you probably won't be able to return the things you buy just because they don't fit. Related to that, if you want to start buying higher end brands that you don't own because you can't afford them full price, next time that you have a shopping trip to a city where you might be able to try those brands on, try them on and learn about the sizing of them, make some notes, and then come away, and then you can search on Vinted for the appropriate sizes with a bit more comfort and confidence. Pricing. To reduce the risk, I never pay more than I'm willing to lose, basically. Not because I have ever been let down on Vinted, I haven't. I think maybe once or twice in hundreds of transactions, probably hundreds, yeah, things haven't arrived. I've alerted Vinted and I've had a refund. The end. And usually it has not been the buyer, it has simply been the vagaries of the postal system. However, what does happen quite frequently is I don't like the thing when it arrives. That does happen. It's really hard, even if we're buying from online retailers, we don't always like what we see on the screen, what we do our best judgment. It doesn't fit how we want, or it isn't the colour or the fabric that we wanted, and there was no way of telling that. We did our best, but we couldn't tell, and we don't like it. So in that case, you've probably lost your money. You've got two options. You can try reselling it on Vinted, and it might well sell, depends what it is, but you might have to wait for that. Personally, usually I donate the items to a charity shop. So they're usually perfectly good quality. They're just not what I was looking for. So for me, I make sure that whatever I'm offering, I'm willing to either wait the time to resell or just cut my losses and donate the item because I didn't like it. So it's psychologically lowering the risk rather than literally lowering the risk, because you will get some fails with things that you buy. It's just inherent in the online process, unfortunately. So thank you very much for watching. I hope there were some useful hints and tips there. If there's anything that I have missed, because I fear that this has been a really long video, but if there was anything that I've missed, please ask in the comments down below, and I will either answer it in a future video or I'll simply answer it in the comments, probably both. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're having a good day, and I will see you tomorrow on Friday with another video. Bye for now.